The whisper in the hallway was a quiet Monday morning at Google's Mountain View headquarters. The glass building stood tall against the golden California sun, shining like a beacon of innovation. Inside, the hum of machines blended with footsteps and soft chatter. Everyone was in a rush. Deadlines loomed, meetings were stacked, and the rhythm of work beat like a steady drum. But hidden within this flow was a secret one that would shake the foundation of the company and the executive. Lounge on the top floor, Sundar Pichai sat alone, sipping a cup of warm chai. His mind wasn't on the board presentation or the product launch scheduled for the next day. It was on something far more personal. His mother, Lakshmi, had arrived from Chennai the night before. She hadn't visited the office in years. Her last visit had been during Sundar's first year as CEO. Now, in her 70s, she walked slower but still carried the same quiet strength he remembered from childhood. She had been a teacher once, then a homemaker, and now she lived a peaceful life back home, enjoying her garden and evening walks. But this trip was different. She had come with a purpose. I wanted to see how they treat people who clean after them. She had said gently over dinner, her eyes steady, not as a guest, but as one of them. Sundar had raised an eyebrow. You want to work here? As a cleaner, she had nodded without hesitation. Not to judge, but to observe. To understand the people who work under your name? He had smiled at first, thinking she was joking. But when he saw the seriousness in her eyes, his smile faded. She wasn't playing. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized she might be right. After all, he had built a company that preached respect, inclusion, and equality. But how could he know if those values were truly lived when he wasn't around? The next morning, Lakshmi arrived at the Google campus wearing a plain janitorial uniform. Her silver hair tucked neatly under a cap. A small cleaning badge hung around her neck. No one recognized her, not the front desk staff, not the employees. She passed in the elevator, and certainly not the floor managers. To them, she was just another cleaner. Her first shift started on the 5th floor, one of the busiest zones. Home to the design and marketing teams. She moved quietly, pushing her cart, wiping desks, and emptying bins. At first, no one noticed her. But soon, the small signs began to appear. A young intern spilled coffee on the floor and walked away without a glance. 2 employees laughed at a janitor's English accent near the restroom. Another left her food container in the hallway, expecting someone to pick it up. Lakshmi saw it all. She didn't react, didn't speak. She simply watched and noted by noon she had moved to the cafeteria. There, a group of employees had taken over a long table, loud and careless. They ate quickly, laughed, and walked away, leaving a mess of trays, spilled drinks, and napkins. One of them, a senior product manager, looked straight at Lakshmi and said, "Better clean this up fast, Auntie. This is Google, not a street corner." Lakshmi froze for a second. The word stung, not because of the insult, but because of the tone. Dismissive, entitled. She bent down without saying a word and began cleaning. What the manager didn't know was that security footage from every cafeteria corner was routed directly to a backup server, the one Sundar had quietly instructed to be monitored that day. In another part of the building, Sundar was watching the live feed. He leaned forward as he saw his mother bend down to wipe the spilled drink. The manager walked away, laughing. Sundar's jaw tightened. This was not how things were supposed to be. That evening, Lakshmi returned to the guest house, tired but calm. Sundar sat beside her, waiting. "What did you see?" He asked softly. "Enough to worry me," she said. "But it's just day 1. Let's see more." The next day, she moved to the engineering floor. Here, things were different, but not better. A few employees nodded politely, but most ignored her. Some avoided eye contact. One even bumped into her cart without saying sorry. Another tossed an empty energy drink and right into the recycling bin labeled "No liquids," muttering, "Someone will sort it out." But the moment that stayed with her happened near the staircase. She overheard 2 employees gossiping. "That guy from facilities? He's just a janitor. What does he know?" "Yeah, Imagine cleaning toilets for a living. Must be rough. They laughed and walked away. Lakshmi stood still, heart heavy. By the end of the second day, Sundar had seen enough to feel a crack forming inside him. He had built Google to be more than a company. It was supposed to be a culture, a family. Yet, here was his mother, unseen and disrespected, in his own home. On the third day, everything changed. Lakshmi was cleaning a meeting room when a young woman named Misha walked in. She smiled warmly, paused, and, "Let me help you with those chairs." Lakshmi looked up, surprised. "You don't have to." She replied softly. "I know," Misha said, stacking the chairs anyway. "But my mom used to clean offices, too. She always said a little kindness makes the day easier." Lakshmi smiled, a real one, this time. "Your mother raised you well." "I hope so," Misha replied, handing her a water bottle. "Please drink something. It's hot today." Later, Lakshmi told Sundar, "There are flowers in the desert, one or two, but they bloom." Sundar nodded, hope returning to his face. But that hope didn't last. On the fourth day, a new manager walked into a storage room where Lakshmi was organizing supplies. He scowled. "You're doing it all wrong. Didn't they teach you how to stack towels? This is why I hate working with contractors." She looked at him silently, then continued folding. He scoffed and left. Outside the door, another cleaner whispered, "Don't take it personally. That's how he talks to all of us." That night, Lakshmi opened her notebook, showing Sundar page after page of names, incidents, and quotes. "Some of these people treat their dogs better than the ones who clean after them," she said quietly. Sundar felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "I will not let this continue," he said. "But if I step in too early, they'll hide behind fake smiles." "Then wait," Lakshmi said. "Wait until they show you the truth. Wait until they forget. You're watching." On the fifth day, something unexpected happened. Lakshmi walked into the break room and found a small paper envelope on the counter with her name on it. Inside was a hand-drawn card. It read, "Thank you for keeping our space clean. We see you. We appreciate you." There was no name, just a heart and a smiley face. Lakshmi's eyes welled up. Not from sadness, but from the smallest act of unseen kindness. She didn't know who had left it, but Sundar would find out. He reviewed camera footage. The card was left by a software engineer named Ryan. He had walked in early, made coffee, and slipped the envelope onto the table before his shift. Sundar made a mental note. Not all were blind. Not all were cold. But the storm was coming. Because on the sixth day, Lakshmi walked into a conference room that had been double booked. A team was having a heated meeting. When she tried to step back quietly, one of the executives yelled, "Can you not? We're trying to run $1 billion company here, not a train station." Someone laughed. Another said, "Just leave, lady." Lakshmi turned and walked away. Outside, her hands trembled. She didn't cry, but Sundar, watching from his office, felt tears sting his eyes. He picked up his phone and called security. "Don't let anyone leave that floor without my permission," he said. And with that, the stage was set for what would become one of the most unforgettable days in Google's history. Asterisk, the reckoning begins the next morning. The skies over Mountain View were darker than usual. A thin fog clung to the edges of the campus as employees hurried in with their usual coffee cups and headphones, unaware that something very different was about to unfold inside the towering glass walls of Google headquarters. To them, it was just another Friday. To Sundar Pichai, it was the day he would reveal what had been hidden in plain sight. Sundar had barely slept the night before. Every moment from the past week played again and again in his head. The arrogance, the carelessness, the veiled insults thrown at the very people who made the company function behind the scenes. The janitors, the cleaners, the support staff. They were not just part of the company, they were the backbone. And yet, they were invisible to so many. He had spent years building a culture of respect. He gave speeches about kindness and diversity. He pushed policies that supported equality. But now he was beginning to see that culture was not created by words. It was revealed in silence in the little things when no one was watching. And the silence of the past week had screamed louder than any protest. Lakshmi sat across from him in the guest house living room, sipping her morning tea. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. Her notes, her observations, and the quiet strength in her eyes told him everything. What hurt him most wasn't just what she had gone through. It was the realization that if his own mother could be treated like that, then so many others must have been suffering silently, day after day, without anyone ever knowing. It's time, he said softly. Yes, she replied, setting her cup down. But don't shout. Just show them who they really are. Sundar nodded. He had a plan. And it started with a simple calendar invite. That morning, every team on the 5th, 6th, and 8th floors received an urgent all-hands meeting request. It was unusual. Last-minute meetings from the CEO rarely happened. The subject line was simple: redefining respect. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. in the central auditorium. It could hold 400 people, and by the time the doors opened, it was packed wall to wall. Whispers floated in the air. Do you know what this is about? Is it about the product delay? Maybe. Someone's getting promoted? As the employees filed in, they noticed something strange. The front rows were occupied by janitorial staff. Men and women in blue and gray uniforms sat quietly, some looking nervous, others confused. No one had told them what was happening. They had simply been asked to attend. A hush fell over the room as Sundar walked onto the stage. He wore a simple black shirt and jeans, no suit, no entourage. The spotlight found him as he stood in the center, hands folded, eyes scanning the crowd. Good morning, he said. His voice calmed out. There was a pause. Before we talk about technology, before we discuss vision or innovation, we need to talk about something more important. He gestured toward the front rows. These are the people who clean your spaces, who make sure your restrooms are sanitary, who stay long after you leave to prepare your desks for the next day. They are the reason your environment feels fresh. Your cafeteria smells clean. Your whiteboards are always spotless. Some employees shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few glanced nervously at each other. This past week, Sundar continued, we had a new team member join us. She was a cleaner. She worked on multiple floors, including the ones many of you sit on every day. She was assigned random shifts. She pushed her cart, wiped your tables, heard your conversations, and experienced your attitudes. Some of you treated her kindly. Some of you ignored her. And some treated her with outright disrespect. He stopped again, letting the weight of the words settle. What you didn't know, he said slowly, was that this cleaner was my mother. Gasps filled the auditorium, heads turned, eyes widened. A few people audibly whispered, no way. Lakshmi stood up slowly from the front row. The light fell softly on her face. Her eyes were calm, but her presence was powerful. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Sundar's voice grew firmer now. We recorded everything. Security footage. Audio from common areas. Every incident. Every gesture. Every word. Not to embarrass, but to reveal. To help us see what we become when we think no one is looking. He paused again, then stepped closer to the edge of the stage. Do you remember saying this is not a street corner to the cleaner in the cafeteria? Do you remember laughing when she walked into a double-booked meeting room? Do you remember the spilled coffee you never cleaned, the tray you never picked up, the names you whispered in hallways? By now, several faces had turned pale. People were sitting rigid, avoiding eye contact. The silence in the room was electric, thick with tension, shame, and reflection. You work at Google, Sundar said. One of the most advanced companies in the world. But if you cannot treat people with basic decency, then we have failed, not just as a company, but as humans. He turned to the screen behind him, which flickered to life. A short montage played clips of the cafeteria mess, ignored spills, rude comments, silent judgments. The video didn't show faces. It wasn't meant to shame. It was meant to teach. Then came a scene from the day before. Misha, the young woman from the support team, stacking chairs beside Lakshmi and handing her a water bottle. But it wasn't all dark, Sundar said gently. Some of you showed incredible kindness, small, silent acts that reminded us what true culture looks like. He clicked another slide, and to the person who left this note, he said, holding up the card with the heart and smiley face, "Thank you. You reminded us that the smallest gesture can leave the deepest impact." The audience was still quiet. Some had tears in their eyes. Others looked down at their laps. A few had their hands over their mouths. Stunned, Sundar took a breath. This is not about firing people. It's about changing people. But let me be clear, those who lead with arrogance, those who create toxic spaces, those who look down on others, they will not have a place here anymore. Today, we are starting a new chapter, one where our values are not just painted on our walls, but practiced in our hallways. He looked at Lakshmi and nodded. She gave a small smile in return, but then he turned back to the audience. And for those who still don't understand why this matters, let me ask you this. What would you do if it were your mother pushing that cart? A long pause followed. No one spoke, and in that silence, the shift began after the meeting. The hallway buzzed, not with gossip, but with reflection. People walked slower. Some approached the janitorial staff and shook their hands. Misha was quietly approached by Sundar himself, who thanked her for being a light in the dark. She smiled shyly, surprised by the recognition, but it wasn't over, because at 3 p.m., Sundar sent out one more email, a list of names, a reshuffling of several management roles. 3 people were quietly let go, not with noise, but with clarity. Not to create fear, but to restore dignity. And by sunset, a new initiative was launched, Project Dignity, a program designed to train all employees, especially managers, on empathy, inclusion, and respect, not just through online modules, but through shadowing. Each executive, director, and senior lead would be required to spend 2 full days per quarter working in support roles, from janitorial shifts to cafeteria duty to facilities management. And it would begin next week. Sundar didn't just want change, he wanted immersion. He wanted them to feel what it meant to be invisible, to be judged, to be looked down upon. And only then, he believed, would true transformation take root. As the day ended, Lakshmi stood on the rooftop garden overlooking the glowing city. Sundar joined her, silent for a while. The breeze was soft, the world below still moving. "You did what I hoped you would," she said finally. "I only followed your example." He replied. She looked at him with gentle pride. "Then maybe there's hope for this world yet." But just as they were about to leave, Sundar's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. An anonymous tip had arrived through the ethics portal. Someone, claiming to be a longtime facilities employee, said there was something deeper, a hidden layer, one that even Lakshmi hadn't seen. An underground group, small but dangerous, that preyed on vulnerable staff and silenced whistleblowers through manipulation and pressure. The message ended with one chilling sentence. "You've scratched the surface. Now look deeper, or you'll miss what really rots beneath." Sundar felt a chill crawl up his spine. He looked at his mother. "We may not be done yet." Asterisk beneath the gloth. Morning after the powerful town hall felt different. There was strange quiet across the Google campus, not the usual peaceful kind, but the kind that hummed with uncertainty. The kind that made people lower their voices in elevators and glance over their shoulders in corridors. Overnight, employees had started to see their surroundings with fresh eyes. They looked at the janitors differently. They noticed things they had ignored for years, the stains near the coffee machines, the people who walked around with brooms and carts like ghosts in the background. Now they saw them, and they didn't know what to say. But while the rest of the building was still recovering from Sundar's emotional address and Lakshmi's quiet revelation, Sundar himself was focused on something else, something far more dangerous. He sat in his office, the blinds drawn slightly, the lights dimmed. A cup of untouched tea sat beside his laptop. The screen glowed with the anonymous tip from the ethics portal. "You've scratched the surface. Now look deeper, or you'll miss what really rots beneath." Sundar read the line again and again. It felt personal, like a warning or a dare. He called the head of internal investigations, an old colleague named Rajiv, someone he trusted more than most. I need you to look into something, Sundar said, forwarding the message. Quietly, very quietly. Don't involve HR. Don't use company emails. Meet me in person. Within an hour, Rajiv arrived, his face tight with concern. I did a surface-level sweep, Rajiv began. And it's not just one complaint. Over the past 3 years, there have been small, scattered reports. Facilities staff being transferred without explanation. Complaints that were suddenly withdrawn. One janitor even left a note in his exit. Survey saying, I'm tired of being watched and warned, but no follow-up was ever done. The files were marked as resolved. Who resolved them? Sundar asked. Mid-level managers in building operations. But when I checked, they no longer work here. And one Rakesh was promoted. Sundar leaned back, eyes narrowing. I want you to go back 5 years. Start with any staff member who filed more than one complaint. Anyone who suddenly quit. Anyone who was transferred out of state without warning. You think it's a cover-up? Rajiv asked quietly. I think it's a pattern, Sundar said. And I think my mother's story was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Lakshmi had returned to her guest house. She was supposed to be resting. That had been the plan. But the fire inside her wouldn't let her sit still. She opened her notebook again, going over her notes. Something gnawed at her, not the obvious cruelty. Not the dismissive tones. Something smaller. Something she couldn't quite name. She remembered a moment from her second day. A woman named Rosa, one of the cleaning crew leads, had whispered to her, don't stay too long in Zone C. He watches. At the time, Lakshmi hadn't understood what Rosa meant. But now it echoed in her mind. He watches. Lakshmi got up, pulled out her phone and called Sundar. Can you find out who manages? Zone C? Why? Because someone told me to avoid it. And she looked scared when she said it. Sundar didn't hesitate. He pulled up the internal layout and employee directory. Zone C was part of the basement-level parking access, supply storage, and facilities maintenance. The area didn't get much foot traffic, but it was essential. Everything from electrical controls to vac operations ran through it. The supervisor there is Vivek, Sundar said. He's been with the company 7 years. No major flags. Maybe, Lakshmi said. Or maybe he's been hiding behind silence. Later that evening, Rajiv returned with a flash drive. I found something. They plugged it into Sundar's secure terminal. A folder popped open. Dozens of incident reports. Names, dates, blurry scanned documents. And then one video file. You're not supposed to have this, Rajiv said. But a former internal systems analyst archived it. The file was buried in the old server from 2019. Sundar clicked. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. It showed a narrow hallway Zone C. A janitor, young and nervous, stood near a storage room. Then a man approached him. Tall, thick-shouldered, firm-postured, IVE. They couldn't hear the audio. But the gesture said enough. Vivek stepped closer, his finger pointing, then jabbing into the janitor's chest. The janitor shook his head. Vivek grabbed his arm roughly and pushed him against the wall. Seconds later, the footage cut out. The file was corrupted after that, Rajiv said. But based on the timestamp, the janitor left the company 2 weeks later. No record of follow-up. Sundar clenched his jaw. His hands curled into fists. Get me his name. Rajiv pulled up the logs. Rash Manohar, moved to Seattle. Number. Contact number. Try to find him. Anything, email, LinkedIn, even a friend. Then Sundar called his chief of security. I want full access to Zone C tomorrow morning. Pull all door logs, camera footage, badge entries, and give me a list of every person who's worked under Vivek in the past 3 years. As the night stretched on, the lights in Sundar's office stayed on. He knew he couldn't go public with this yet, not until he had proof. Not until he understood the full web. Because this was what it looked like, a hidden ring of abuse, threats, and silent suffering, then he wasn't just dealing with poor workplace culture. He was dealing with corruption, and that ran deep. Meanwhile, Lakshmi took a different route. She returned to the cafeteria the next day, not in uniform, but in plain clothes. Some staff recognized her now. They nodded respectfully. A few whispered, "Thanks," but she wasn't here to be seen. She was here to find Rosa. After a short search, she found her sitting alone in the break room, sipping tea. Lakshmi approached slowly. "Hello," she said. Softly. Rosa looked up, eyes wide. "Ma'am, I didn't know it was you." "Please," Lakshmi said, sitting beside her. "Just call me Lakshmi." Rosa nodded, but her hands trembled slightly. "I remember what you said." "About Zone C," Lakshmi began. "Can you tell me why?" Rosa looked around nervously, lowering her voice. "It's where they send us when we complain. Punishment zone, we call it. No lights, no windows, bad shifts, no breaks. And him, Vivek, he doesn't like questions. Did he ever threaten you? Not me. But I saw him corner Priya once. He held so close. His spit landed on her face. She was new. He said, 'You either shut up or get out.' Next week, she was gone." "And no one reported it?" Rosa shook her head. "We tried. Once. But then one of the guys who spoke up got demoted. Moved to night shift in Building 4. No elevators. Stairs only. He quit a month later." Lakshmi's heart tightened. This wasn't just disrespect. It was intimidation. Later that day, Rajiv finally located Rayesh Manohar, the janitor from the video. He was working at a warehouse in Seattle. Sundar called him personally. When Rayesh heard Sundar's voice, there was a long silence. "Sir, I never thought you'd call me." "I want to hear your story," Sundar said. "All of it." And Rayesh did. He spoke for nearly an hour about the bullying, the threats, the silent pressure, how he was asked to sign an NDA on his way out, how he was offered extra money just to walk away quietly, and how he had stayed silent all these years. Because he thought no one cared. "You were wrong," Sundar said quietly. "I care." By the end of the call, Sundar had enough. He called an emergency meeting with the Board of Ethics, Legal Counsel, and Internal Compliance. He laid everything out: names, files, footage, testimonies. "We're not just talking about toxic behavior anymore," he said. "We're talking about a system that punishes the weak and protects the powerful. And we're going to tear it down." But as the meeting ended and people began to move, Rajiv's phone buzzed. He checked the screen. His face went pale. "What is it?" Sundar asked. Rajiv handed over the phone. A message had arrived on his private line. "You don't know what you're doing. Walk away. Before someone gets hurt. No name. No number. Just a threat." Sundar read it twice, then looked out the window. "We're getting close," he whispered. "Too close." Rajiv said, "Asterisk shadows on the surface. Days of calm, innovation, and tech breakthroughs at Google had quietly shifted into something else. Beneath the surface of emails, code reviews, and sleeked demo rooms, there was now a thrum of paranoia. The kind that settled behind every keyboard click and echoed through the concrete pillars in the underground levels. No one could quite name it. But those who had noticed the shift in Sundar Pichai's demeanor, his sharper tone, his sudden private meetings, his locked-door sessions with internal security, felt that something serious was boiling. And they were right. Sundar stood in the center of a darkened data room, surrounded by racks of blinking servers. The chilled air bit at his face. Standing beside him were Rajiv and a woman named Elena, head of digital forensics. Elena was quiet, observant, with a gaze that could read log trails like poetry. Her team had just finished scrubbing 5 years of access records to Zone C and surrounding systems. She leaned over a touchscreen console and pointed. "We found something unusual." The display showed an overlay of badge access logs. It mapped out hundreds of entry records, expected ones from maintenance, cleaning, electrical checks. But several entries didn't line up. Same badge ID, same time. Two different locations. Duplicate. Badge? Sundar asked Dot. Double quotes no. Clone badge, Elena replied. Whoever's behind this knows how to manipulate the only someone with admin level access or someone inside security. Rajiv looked at her. Do we have names? I'm narrowing it down, but here's the real kicker. She tapped again. The screen shifted to a different view. A small storage closet in Zone C, camera feed. This was disabled from the network 2 years ago, Elena said. But we recovered footage from a backup drive that was never wiped. Sundar watched closely. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m., March 9th, 2022. The footage showed a group of 3 people in janitor uniforms entering the closet. But their movements were precise, coordinated. One of them opened a locked cabinet using a key card. Inside folders, envelopes, even a small camera kit. They weren't cleaning. They were monitoring. They used this closet as a drop point. Elena said, information, exchange, surveillance, storage, intimidation letters, possibly even planted evidence. Sundar felt a chill creep through him. Who are they? We ran facial recognition on the footage. 2 are known employees. 1 was terminated last year. The third, she hesitated. He's still active. Works in logistics. But here's the twist. He was hired under a different name 6 years ago. Fake identity. Multiple background discrepancies. And no one caught it. He slipped through the vetting system. Rajiv asked, stunned. He didn't just slip through, Elena said. He reprogrammed it. Sundar's mind raced. This wasn't about a few bullies in the basement. This was organized, methodical. Someone had built a shadow network within. One of the most secure companies in the world, and no one had noticed. Lakshmi sat in the guest house garden later that afternoon, watching small birds dance between trees. Her eyes were soft, but her heart was heavy. She had seen corruption in schools, in public offices, even in homes, but to see it rooted so quietly inside her own company, where minds were supposed to be open, where culture was meant. To be respectful was almost too much to bear. Sundar arrived quietly and sat beside her. We found a hidden network. Not just toxic behavior. Actual surveillance. Intimidation. Forged records. Lakshmi looked down at her hands. It always starts small. A harsh word. A look of superiority. Then it grows like mold in darkness. He nodded. I just never imagined it would be this deep. We must clean it, she said, her voice calm but firm. Not just punish it. Clean it. Root to soil. That night, Sundar convened a war room, an internal operation with only 7 members, each carefully chosen for their integrity and independence. No one from HR, no one from external legal. Just Elena, Rajiv, himself, and a small digital forensics team. They named it Project Mirror. The idea is simple, Sundar said. Hold a mirror to the system. Find every reflection that doesn't match. Over the next 72 hours, the team worked without rest. They cross-referenced files, they tracked janitor transfers, they dug through archived access logs, they found deleted emails, and then they discovered something that made everything else. SEEM small dot buried inside a hidden database on a mislabeled server was a folder titled Support Protocols, Confidential. Inside, hundreds of voice recordings. AUDIO files captured through unauthorized devices, staff conversations, complaint, calls, even private locker room chatter. Someone had been recording them. For years, they used these to control people, Elena whispered, horrified. Find weaknesses, threats, anything they could use to silence staff. And at the center of it all was Vivek. He wasn't just a floor supervisor. He was the conduit. The one who relayed messages, enforced threats, ensured silence. But he wasn't working alone. A deeper name emerged. Rajat Bansal. He wasn't on any official roster. No badge. No emails. No HR file. But the servers told another VP PN activity. System overrides. Code insertions. Rajat was real. He had worked as a contract systems analyst 6 years ago. Left after 8 months. Or so it seemed, but a private IP address tied to. His laptop had been active on internal networks ever since, logging in at night, changing access routes, scrubbing complaint logs. He's the architect, Elena said, and Vivek's the enforcer. Rajiv added. Sundar stood still for a moment, breathing deeply. Then he said, I want them both. And I want everyone connected to them. No more shadows. The next morning, he walked into the Zone C basement with security and tow. No warning. Vivek was sitting at a desk, reviewing cleaning. Rosters, he looked up, surprised. Mr. Pichai. This is unexpected. Not for me, Sundar replied. Stand up, please. Vivek hesitated, then slowly rose. A security officer stepped forward and removed his badge. You are being placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. Investigation? Vivek laughed nervously. What is this? A mistake? But Sundar's face was made of stone. No, he said. It's justice. As Vivek was escorted out, other staff peeked from behind corners. Whispers spread like fire. Within hours, Elena's team executed a network lockdown. Rayat's access was traced to a remote location outside Palo Alto. The signal was bouncing through layers of proxies, but they had a trail now. He thinks he's invisible, Elena said, but we've already seen his reflection. Meanwhile, Lakshmi returned to the floors where she had once cleaned in silence. This time, she was dressed as herself. She walked openly. Employees who had once brushed past her now approached with apologies. Others stood in silence, unsure how to act. She smiled gently, saying nothing. Because sometimes silence speaks louder. Then lectures. But even as change began to blossom, danger still lingered. That evening, as Sundar returned to his car in the underground garage, he noticed something unusual. A man in a gray hoodie standing near a pillar, not moving, not looking up. When Sundar's footsteps echoed, the man turned and said something barely above a whisper. You're playing with fire. Before Sundar could reply, the man disappeared into the shadows. Sundar stood there, heart pounding, not in fear, but in resolve. Because now he knew he had found the roots and he was going to tear them out. Asterisk. The fire behind the curtain is the golden California sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting long shadows across the Google campus. Sundar Pichai sat alone in his dimly lit office. The encounter in the garage haunted him. The stranger's voice, barely louder than a breath, still echoed in his ears. You're playing with fire. He had faced boardroom politics, corporate takeovers, and global controversies. But this felt different. This wasn't business. This was personal, calculated, dangerous. Outside, everything looked the same. Engineers typed away. Managers scheduled meetings, interns rushed to grab late-night snacks. But beneath the calm, an invisible war had begun. And Sundar knew it wasn't over, not by a long shot. In the past 48 hours. Elena's digital forensics team had uncovered even more troubling evidence. Hidden bank transfers, encrypted emails sent through anonymized services, burner phones purchased in bulk, tied to nothing, yet traced back to parking garages near campus. They were staring into the guts of a system built not just to intimidate, but to erase traces of those who questioned it. The more they uncovered, the more sinister it became, and at the heart of it all was Rajat Bansal, the ghost in the machine. Rajiv leaned over a map of the area spread across the conference table. Pins and notes littered the surface. We traced Rayat's last signal to a co-working space in San Jose, he said. We contacted the building manager. He's been renting a small office under a fake startup name, Synergix Labs. No tax records. No filings. Just a mailbox and high-speed internet. What's he doing in there? Sundar asked. We're not sure yet, Elena replied. But one of our honeypot servers caught a ping from his terminal. He's trying to access internal systems again, this time deeper. He's looking for whistleblower lists, names, and cleaning them. So he's covering his tracks, Sundar murmured, or planning his next move. Rajiv added, Lakshmi had remained mostly quiet during the past few days. But her presence had grown stronger, like a calm storm watching everything unfold. She walked through the offices during daylight hours, speaking with cleaners, tech support teams, cafeteria workers. She listened, not as the CEO's mother, not even as a guest, but as someone who understood silence. One cleaner named Abdi told her, They used to say if you make noise, you get zone seed. What does that mean? Lakshmi asked gently. He looked down. It means you're made invisible. Even the worst shifts. Your complaints disappear, and your name becomes a whisper. She wrote it down in her notebook. Your name becomes a whisper. Sundar. Read her entry that evening and felt his chest tighten. This wasn't just systemic abuse, it was identity erasure. And it had lasted far too long. He made a decision. I'm going to the San Jose office myself, he said to Rajiv and Elena. No more distance. I want to look into his eyes. It's risky, Rajiv warned. He's desperate now. That's exactly why, Sundar replied. Desperation reveals truth. They left early the next morning. Unmarked car, plain clothes. No security convoy. Only Elena, Rajiv, and one off-duty private investigator named Michelle, who had worked corporate espionage cases in Europe. The co-working space was modern, glass-paneled, with friendly staff and complimentary lattes. But one office on the second floor was different. The windows were covered. The door had a fingerprint lock. Michelle bypassed it in under 3 minutes. They stepped inside. Empty. No personal items. No furniture, save for a desk, a monitor, and a single desktop computer humming softly. He's remote now, Elena whispered, controlling everything from afar. But on the screen, a message blinked in bold red font. Nice try. Still 2. Moves ahead, and below it, an address. None of them spoke. They drove in silence to the location, listed, an abandoned warehouse outside the city limits, nestled between 2 construction yards. The structure was old, windows shattered, overgrown, vines crawling up its sides. He wants you to come, Michelle said, watching Sundar. This is a setup. Then let's finish it, Sundar replied. They entered cautiously. Inside, a dim bulb flickered from the ceiling. In the center of the vast, empty floor stood a single folding chair and a laptop placed on a box. The screen was already on. Live video feed. Rajat Bayate. Bainsal's face appeared. Older than his file photo. Thinner, eyes sharp, almost manic. Sundar, he said with a smirk. You came. Sundar stepped forward. Why did you do it? Rajat leaned closer. To the camera. Because people like me are forgotten. I built the backbone of your systems. Fix bugs no one could even see. But when it was time to promote, you picked your favorites. Clean suits, pretty smiles, and I was left to rot. So I built something better. Something you never saw coming. You exploited people, Sundar said calmly. You hurt them. I exposed them, Rajat snapped. I showed them the truth. That all your values, respect, equality, kindness, they're just words. People only follow them when someone's watching. So, you decided to punish the innocent? Sundar's voice was firmer now. You created fear. You silenced cleaners. You threatened staff who had no power, just because you felt invisible. Rajat's laugh was bitter. Welcome to the real world, CEO. This isn't about you. This is about the system. You think firing me will fix anything? I don't, Sundar said. But exposing you will. Behind him, Elena activated a device that captured the stream and traced the signal. Within seconds, her laptop pinged. He's not here, she said. He's 6 blocks away. In a data van, Michelle called it in. Within 15 minutes, local law enforcement, paired with internal security, cornered the van and arrested Rajat Bansal without resistance. Inside, they found multiple hard drives, audio tapes, forged documents, and software tools designed to exploit internal Google systems. As the van doors slammed shut, Rajiv turned to Sundar. It's over, but Sundar shook his head. Not yet, not until we rebuild. That evening, Sundar called for another all-hands meeting. This time, every employee on-site and remote was required to attend. Screens lit up across continents. Lakshmi stood beside him on stage, her presence calm and unwavering. This week, Sundar began, we uncovered a network of abuse that grew in silence. We have removed those responsible. But that is only the beginning. He paused. You see, buildings don't collapse because of storms. They collapse because their foundations were weak. And our foundation, our culture has cracks. His voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. But it cut deep from, today, every level of leadership will undergo empathy immersion. Every new hire will shadow our support staff for 2 weeks. Every cleaner, cook, and guard will have the right to report directly to senior leadership with protection. He looked around the auditorium, and starting now, all badges will have one title, just one, not senior developer, not executive, director, not janitor, just team member, because that's who we are. The crowd was still, then a single clap echoed, then another. And another, until the room roared not for a product, not for a launch, but for a promise. Later. As the lights dimmed and employees returned to work, Lakshmi and Sundar stood alone on the rooftop. She looked at him, her eyes glistening. You didn't just clean the building, she said. You cleaned its soul. He smiled softly, but deep in the shadows, something still stirred, because as Elena reviewed the confiscated drives from Rayat's van, she found one last file. Password-protected. Asterisk, the final mirror of thick silence hung over the Google security command. Room as Elena stared at the encrypted file, blinking ominously on her screen. Labeled Phase 2, it didn't just feel like a digital document. It felt like a final warning. A silent challenge from a man who had already caused so much destruction. Rajat Bansal had been arrested, his dark operation exposed, and his network of manipulation dismantled. But this one file hidden, locked, untouched felt like a last breath waiting to scream. She called Sundar immediately. He arrived with Rajiv and Michelle, joining Alina and her team in the dimly lit control hub, buried deep beneath the Googleplex. The room was cold, humming with machines. Multiple screens displayed active code decryption logs, system scans, and internal alerts. The file sat in the center of it all, defiant and unread. We tried every credential, Alina said. Nothing works. He used a rotating algorithm, meaning the password changes every time the file is accessed. Can we brute force it? Rajiv asked. Not without triggering a kill script, she replied. It's laced with logic bombs. If we guess wrong more than twice, the file erases itself and plants decoys. He built this like a trapdoor, Sundar said quietly. Exactly, Alina nodded. But there's something strange. The password prompt isn't just alphanumeric. It includes a security question. She pulled it up on screen. A single line appeared. What name did you make disappear? They stared at it. Rajiv frowned. It's symbolic, like everything Rajat did. Elena's voice dropped. Or it's literal. A name he erased from the system. Someone who tried to speak out and was wiped from the database entirely. You mean like a digital ghost? Sundar asked. Yes, Alina nodded. Someone so buried they don't even exist anymore. Michelle leaned over. There was a janitor's son who used to visit the campus years ago. His mother brought him during the night shift. He used to sit in the lounge reading. Someone said he was brilliant. Then one day, both vanished. Elena's fingers flew over the keyboard, checking. Employment records? Year, 2018. Name, Kavitha Region. Facilities, terminated without explanation. No exit interview. And her child's name? Anand Rajan. She paused. There's no school record. No visitor's log. No badge for him. But look this photo. On the screen was a security image. A small boy, maybe 12, holding a stack of science books, sitting quietly in the corner of a janitorial closet. He was smiling, unaware that a camera had even caught him. He was shadow banned, Alina whispered. Digitally erased, not even flagged. Just deleted. By Rajat. Sundar asked. He must have seen the boy's potential. Or maybe he saw him as a threat. A reminder of what the system failed to recognize. They entered the name Anand. Rajan. The file clicked open. The room froze. On screen. Hundreds of folders unfolded. Each marked with labels that sent a chill down their spines. Contingency protocols, leverage profiles, sleeper access lists. Silent assets. Inside was a blueprint. Phase 2 wasn't a new attack. It was a continuation. Rajat had designed it. So, if he was ever caught, the system would auto-activate a network of insiders who would quietly restore everything he built. Not managers, not executives, but overlooked people. The ones who had suffered in silence, janitors, interns, contractors. People who were easy to control if you offered them what the world denied them, recognition. Alina scrolled through a list of names. Most were familiar. Some had already been removed, but a few were still active. He used his position to create a digital resistance, Rajiv said, stunned. People he could manipulate by making them believe he was their savior. And now they might be waiting for instructions. Sundar whispered. At that moment, Lakshmi entered the room. Her steps slow, steady, as if guided by something more than curiosity. She had sensed the tension, and she had come to offer what no algorithm could perspective. This man, she said, pointing at Rajat's image still glowing on the screen. He built his power on the idea that the system had failed people like him, and perhaps he wasn't wrong. Everyone turned to her, but his mistake, she continued, was thinking he had to burn the garden to be seen, when all he needed to do was grow his own tree. Sundar felt those words carve into his heart. We must reach them, Lakshmi said, the ones still inside, the ones he touched. Not with force, with truth. He nodded. And so began Operation Horizon. Over the next 7 days, Sundar recorded a personal message raw, vulnerable, honest. It wasn't corporate video. It wasn't polished or scripted. It was just him. Speaking from the soul, he spoke of pain. Of blind spots, of a mother who swept floors in silence so she could see the cracks her son had missed. He spoke of Anand, the erased boy, and how systems sometimes forget the brightest minds because they don't fit into boxes. He spoke of Raja, not as a villain, but as a cautionary tale. Someone who let his bitterness turn him into the very force he once fought against. And finally, Sundar made a plea. If you ever felt unseen, unvalued, or forgotten, know that I see you now, and I ask not for your silence, but your help to build something better, together. The video was shared internally first. But then something unexpected happened. A junior staff member uploaded it anonymously to a public platform. Within hours, it went viral. News outlets picked it up. Employees shared it. Former contractors reposted it with comments like, I cried watching this, and he finally said what we always hoped someone would say. Messages poured in from around the world. People shared their own stories of being overlooked, dismissed, underestimated, but more than that, some of Rajat's silent assets came forward. One by one. Emails trickled in. I was approached by him. I never acted, but he said he could. Make me matter. He offered me access. I never took it. But I didn't stop him either. I'm sorry. He helped my sister get hired. I thought he was good. I didn't know the full story. Forgiveness didn't come easy, but truth had started to spread. And slowly. Like rain after drought, healing followed. Weeks later, Google launched Mirror, a permanent initiative that allowed every employee, regardless of role or title, to give anonymous feedback, report injustice, or share innovation ideas directly with leadership. No managers. No filtering. Each month, one support staff member would co-chair meetings with C-level executives. Not as a formality, but as policy. They also launched the Anand Rajan Scholarship for children of support staff who showed promise in science. Math or art? Lakshmi was made his first honorary chair, and somewhere in a quiet part of the office, a small plaque was placed on the wall of the janitor's lounge. It read, "No one is invisible." Months later, on a peaceful morning, Sundar sat in the garden outside the Googleplex. Birds chirped. The sun touched his face. Lakshmi joined him, holding a warm cup of tea. "You changed the company," she said, double quotes. "No," Sundar replied. "You did, I just followed your truth." She smiled, her eyes soft but proud. "You listened," she said. "That's the hardest part." And as they sat in silence, a young boy walked by, holding a tablet, doodling formulas on it with his finger. "Who's that?" Sundar asked. "New scholarship student," Lakshmi replied. "His name's Dev. His father works in the mailroom." "He looks sharp." "He is." The boy paused, looked up at them, and smiled. And in that smile, Sundar saw the future not in code, not in charts, but in the quiet power of those the world once forgot.